In the noisy heart of a busy African town, where car horns argue louder than politicians, and everyone always seems in a hurry to go nowhere, lived a little girl named Ada. She was about 10, thin as a broomstick, barefoot, with dust as her daily makeup. Her eyes, however, were bright, the kind of bright that comes from hope refusing to die. And beside her was her mother, known to everyone as Mama Ada, the mad one. But Ada didn't see madness, she saw love. Broken, cracked, confused love, but still love all the same. Every morning, before the sun even fully stretched its arms, Ada would wake up on their bed, a flattened cardboard box tucked beside a half-dead tree near the bus stop. She would carefully cover her mother with an old shawl, tattered but sacred, and then sneak off to fetch water from a nearby public tap, one that coughed more air than water. Ada, whispering to herself, please flow today, just small for washing. When it finally gurgled to life, Ada filled her plastic bottle like it was treasure. She'd return, wash her mother's face gently, humming a song her mother once taught her back when things were better, a song Mama Ada sometimes still remembered on her good days. Now, Mama Ada wasn't mad every day. Some days she would talk to herself, scolding invisible people. Mama Ada angrily complains, I told them I'm not the one who stole the chicken. It was a pastor's son. Go and ask him. People would stare, shake their heads, and hurry past, because in this town, madness was like rain. If it didn't fall on you today, you thanked God quietly and kept walking. Other days, Mama Ada would be tender, brushing Ada's hair with her fingers, muttering lullabies that made no sense but sounded beautiful anyway. Mama Ada softly whispered, My Ada, you'll sing for the angels one day. But first, let's find breakfast before they eat it all. And off they'd go, two shadows moving through the chaos of the morning. Their spot was near the big bus stop, strategic, noisy, full of tired commuters and kind hearts in a hurry. Ada would sit with a small, rusty bowl, singing softly. Sometimes people dropped coins, sometimes insults, sometimes both. A bystander passes by and comments, Such a waste, young girl with a mad mother. But Ada didn't mind. She'd smile, thank them, and keep singing, her little voice blending with the city noise like it belonged there. When hunger came gnawing, they'd share whatever coins they had, maybe a banana, maybe leftover rice from a nearby kiosk. Mama Ada always gave Ada the bigger share. Mama Ada sternly said, Eat it all. I'll eat later. My stomach is just playing hide and seek. Ada knew later meant never. So she'd sneak half of it back into her mother's hand when she wasn't looking. By noon, Mama Ada would start her sermons. She'd stand in the middle of the bus stop, waving her hands dramatically. Mama Ada shouts loudly, Repent. Repent before the sun catches you sleeping. Even the goats are more serious about life. The bus conductors called her Pastor Mama. Some even tipped her for entertainment. Ada would giggle, embarrassed yet proud. Her mother might be mad, but she had an audience. Then, as the heat rose, Mama Ada would settle under the tree, humming and talking to the clouds, while Ada chased shade, chasing coins, chasing dreams. As evening painted the town orange, Ada and her mother would sit close together, sharing stories of the big house they once had, though Ada wasn't sure those stories were real or just pieces of Mama's broken memory. Mama Ada smiles faintly and said, We had a piano once. You used to dance on top of it till I thought it would break. Ada laughs and snaps. Maybe that's why we lost it. They'd laugh, the kind of laughter that hides pain but keeps hope alive. When the night fell, Ada would lie beside her mother, listening to her hum, sometimes softly, sometimes wildly. And in that chaos of love and madness, Ada found peace. Because even in the streetlight's cold glow, her mother's arm was still the warmest blanket she knew. That was Ada's world. A world made of cardboard beds, stolen songs, and moments of madness wrapped in tenderness. And though she had nothing, she still had her voice. And that was the beginning of everything. It was a bright afternoon, the kind where the sun refused to mind its business, shining directly into everyone's face like it owned the town. Ada sat on her usual spot beside the bus stop sign, her rusty tin bowl placed carefully before her, half filled with coins, bottle caps, and the occasional biscuit crumb. She was humming softly, lost in her own tune, as her mother, Mama Ada, argued with a passing lorry. Mama Ada shouts angrily, "Stop throwing your smoke at me, you mechanical demon." Even my ancestors are coughing. The lorry driver honked in response. Perhaps an apology, or perhaps just to prove Mama Ada right. That was how their days usually went. Mama Ada argued with things that didn't argue back, and Ada singing to a world that rarely listened. But that day, someone did listen. From the corner of the dusty street came a girl in a neat blue school uniform, white socks reaching her knees, and shoes so shiny you could see your reflection, or at least your poverty, in them. Her name was Sandra, daughter of a wealthy businessman whose company's billboards were scattered all over town. Sandra passed that bus stop every day after school. The same route, same time, same traffic. And every day, she noticed a barefoot girl sitting with her mad mother, singing softly. But this time, she stopped. Sandra smiles and asks in a soft voice, "Hi, what's your name?" Ada responds in surprise, "My name's Ada, but some people call me Move Away Girl." Sandra giggles. "That's a funny name." Ada smiles shyly. "It's what they say when I sit near their shops." Sandra laughed, the kind of laugh that didn't mock. It invited. She reached into her lunchbox and handed Ada a packet wrapped in foil. "Here, I didn't finish my lunch. It's rice and beans and one sausage left." Ada asks, eyes wide in astonishment. "Sausage? Like real meat?" To Ada, sausage wasn't food. It was a rumor the rich invented to tease the poor. She opened it slowly, breathing in the aroma as though it were perfume. Ada grins and says, "Thank you. You're my favorite stranger." Sandra responds, giggling, "I'm not a stranger anymore. I'm Sandra." And that was how it began. Every afternoon, Sandra would pass by after school, sometimes with leftover food, sometimes just with a smile, but always with a "Hi, Ada," that brightened the whole street. Mama Ada would sometimes stare suspiciously. Mama Ada asked in a loud voice, "Who is this child? Is she from the government? Did they send her to steal our coins?" Ada laughs and responds objectively, "No, Mama, she's my friend." Mama Ada remarks with serious tone, "Friends, eat your food first, then your dreams. Be careful." That was Mama Ada's version of motherly advice. It made no sense, but also, somehow, perfect sense. Sandra would often sit for a while, listening to Ada sing. Her voice was soft, like sunlight filtering through dust. Sandra curiously asks, "Who taught you how to sing like that?" Ada smiles and responds, "My stomach. It sings when it's empty." That answer made Sandra blink, then laugh so hard she nearly dropped her bag. Their friendship was strange onlookers, like a fairy playing with a sparrow. Sandra came from a world of comfort, rules, and Wi-Fi. Ada came from a world where comfort was an accident and tomorrow was not guaranteed. Yet, every time they talked, their laughter made the difference disappear. One day, Sandra asked curiously, "Why don't you go to school?" Ada replied, looking down, "I went once. They said I smell like the gutter and told me to go back there, so I did." Sandra's smile faded. She didn't know what to say. So she did what kind people do when words fail. She just held Ada's hand for a while. Sandra whispered, "You can borrow my books if you want. I'll bring some tomorrow." Ada reappears excitedly. "Really? I'll read them to Mama." She likes stories, especially when they don't shout back. As the evening traffic began its daily concert of horns, Sandra zipped up her bag and stood. Sandra politely said, "I have to go, Ada. My driver will be angry if I'm late." Ada grined and said, "Tell him to honk less. The cars here already talk too much." Sandra laughed again and waved as she crossed the road. From the back seat of her father's air-conditioned car, she watched Ada still sitting under the bus stop, singing softly, her mother beside her waving at invisible angels. That image stayed in Sandra's mind all night. A dirty little girl, singing like the world hadn't broken her yet. That night, Ada curled up beside her mother, the foil from Sandra's food still clutched in her hand. not because of hunger, but because it was proof someone cared. She looked up at the stars and whispered, "God, if you can hear me, thank you for the girl with the shiny shoes." And for the first time in a long while, Ada fell asleep smiling, dreaming not of food but of friendship, because sometimes kindness is the only blanket a soul needs. And just like that, two worlds had quietly met at a dusty bus stop, one full of dreams, the other full of money. Neither knew that this small act of friendship would soon change both their lives forever. Evening in the city was its own kind of music. The hiss of frying oil from food vendors, the rumble of buses groaning home, and the laughter of people trying to forget how hard life had been during the day. But for Ada, the evening was performance time. Her stage was the cracked pavement beside the bus stop. Her microphone, a broken plastic spoon she held like a superstar. And her audience, vendors, commuters, and pigeons with terrible taste in rhythm. Musical note Ada's Song of the Street. As the sky turned orange, Ada began to sing, a melody she made up herself, part lullaby, part prayer. Her mother swayed beside her, clapping slightly offbeat, smiling like a proud fan club of one. Ada started singing softly. Musical note, tomorrow will come, even if today forgets me. I'll rise with the sun, and maybe the world will see. Musical note. Her voice floated over the noise, fragile but beautiful, like a butterfly landing on barbed wire. People slowed down to listen. Some smiled, some stared, but most hurried off. Still, Ada sang, eyes closed, lost in her own little world. That's when she appeared, Aunt Praise. She wasn't really Ada's aunt, of course, but that's what Ada would call her later. Aunt Praise was a music teacher at a private school nearby, a woman whose presence could hush even gossiping neighbors. She walked home from work every evening, always with earphones in, blocking out the chaos of the street. Until that day, because that day, she heard something that made her stop. Aunt Praise politely asked, "Who's singing like that?" She pulled out her earphones, following the voice, past fruit sellers' motorbikes, and a boy roasting maize who looked confused as she ignored his "Madam, fresh corn, sweet like your smile." Aunt Praise wasn't listening. She was chasing the voice that had somehow cut through the city's noise, soft, raw, and full of something money couldn't buy. Feeling. Aunt Praise asked softly, "My dear, who taught you to sing like that?" Ada smiling nervously and said, "Nobody, Ma. I just sing when I'm hungry. It makes the hunger forget me for a while." Aunt Praise's heart cracked right there, the kind of crack that lets light in. She knelt beside Ada, brushing away dust from her tiny hands. Aunt Praise commented, "You have a gift, Ada. That voice that's beautiful. It needs to be heard." Mama Ada suspiciously asked, "Beautiful voice? Are you from the radio station? You want to steal my daughter's throat." Aunt Praise blinked. Only in this town could you be accused of throat theft. Aunt Praise smiling and said politely, "No, Mama, I'm a music teacher. I just want to help her sing better." Mama Ada nodded and shouted, "Good, but don't take her soul. The last man who promised help took my bucket." Aunt Praise just smiled and reached into her bag. She pulled out a bottle of juice and a small wrapped bun, the kind of soft bread Ada had only smelled before. Aunt Praise whispered, "Here, eat. You'll sing better with strength." Ada whispered with tears in her eyes, "Thank you, Auntie. No one's ever given me bread just because I sang." The next evening, Aunt Praise came again, this time carrying something wrapped in a black cloth. When she unwrapped it, Ada gasped. It was a guitar, old, slightly scratched but still beautiful. Aunt Praise smiled and said, "It's yours, Ada. Let's see if the streets are ready for some real music." Ada held it like it was made of gold. She plucked one string. The sound twanged awkwardly, but to her, it was the most wonderful noise she'd ever made. From then on, every evening, Aunt Praise stopped by to teach her, right there under the bus stop sign, while Mama Ada clapped and hummed and occasionally interrupted with random sermons. Mama Ada, yelling and pointing to crowd, "You people, repent and learn chords. Even angels love music." Some days, Aunt Praise brought her to the small music school where she taught part-time. For 2 hours each day, Ada would sit among real students, eyes wide, soaking in every note, every word. The others whispered, of course. They didn't like the street girl who smelled of dust and dreams. But Aunt Praise saw what they couldn't, a spark too bright to ignore. Then one day, things changed. Aunt Praise arrived looking different, not her usual confident self. Her eyes were tired, and she held an envelope in her hand. Aunt Praise gently whispered, Ada, I have to go away for some time. I got a job offer in America. It's a big opportunity. Ada nervously asked, America? Where's that? Farther than the next market? Aunt Praise smiled and said, Yes, my dear, very far, but I'll come back, I promise. Ada nodded, but her eyes betrayed her. They shimmered with tears. Keep singing, Ada. Promise me. No matter what happens, don't stop. Ada says, sniffling, I promise. Even if nobody listens, I'll sing for trees. Aunt Praise says, and they will clap for you. They hugged. The next day, Aunt Praise left, and Ada watched the buses, hoping one would bring her back. Days passed, then weeks, but Aunt Praise's spot by the street stayed empty. Without her teacher, Ada's lesson stopped. The music school demanded payment, which Aunt Praise used to handle. When Ada couldn't pay, they told her not to come back. The gateman shut the gate in her face one evening, his tone colder than the metal he guarded. Gateman gruffly shouts, Go home, mad girl. This place is not for you. Ada quietly responds, But this is my home. Her classmates laugh from inside, their polished shoes tapping rhythmically. Not in support, but mockery. A classmate sarcastically shouts, Look at her, the mad girl, thinks she's Beyoncé. And for the first time since she started singing, Ada went quiet. That night, even Mama Ada noticed. Mama Ada worriedly asks, Why aren't you singing, my little bird? Ada softly responds, My song fell asleep. Mama, maybe it's tired. Mama Ada gently whispers, Then wake it up. Even tired birds must sing to find the sun. It was a kind of wisdom only madness could bring, and Ada carried it in her heart. Because though her world had gone silent, she knew that someday, somehow, the music would find her again. Little did she know, her song was not over. It was only waiting for the right ear to hear it once more. Morning broke like any other, noisy, dusty, full of promise that never quite reached Ada. After Aunt Praise's departure and the humiliation at the music school, the world felt colder, heavier. Even the air seemed different, like it had stopped caring about melodies. Ada still carried a guitar, her treasure, wrapped in a torn piece of cloth, though one string had snapped and another made a sound like a mosquito with a sore throat. But she kept it anyway, because the guitar wasn't just wood and wire. It was memory. That morning, Ada tried one last time. She walked to the music school, barefoot, clutching a guitar like a soldier returning to a battlefield. She approached the gate with trembling hope. Ada softly pleads, Uncle, please, I just want to listen to them practice. I won't disturb. Gateman gruffly responds, I told you before, small madam, no fees, no entry. This is not a radio station. Ada replies, But I can stay outside the door. I just want to hear. Gateman interruptingly shouts, Go away. Hey, don't let the children catch your madness. He slammed the gate shut with a loud clang. The sound echoed in Ada's chest like a thunderclap. From behind the gate, her classmates peered through the fence, giggling. A classmate shouts, Look, it's a street sing again. A classmate comments in a mocking tone, Sing for us, mad girl. Maybe the principal will give you a broom. Children can be cruel, especially when they've never known hunger. Ada turned away slowly, her little hands tightening around the broken guitar. For a moment, she wanted to cry, to drop the instrument and let it all go. But she remembered Aunt Praise's words, Don't stop singing, no matter what. So she smiled through the tears and Ada softly whispers to herself, Okay, if they close the door, I'll find a window. She went back to the streets, but even the streets had changed. Her old bench near the bus stop, occupied by a gang of drunkards. Her little corner by the market, taken by men waiting for casual jobs, each more desperate than the next. Ada sighs. Even the streets are full now. Maybe I should book space in the sky. It was a kind of joke only hunger could make funny. With nowhere else to go, Ada wandered until she reached a quiet park on the edge of town. There stood a large mango tree, old, wide, and kind-looking, the sort of tree that had probably seen more stories than most people. Ada placing her guitar down and whispers, "Okay, big tree, you're my new house." The tree didn't answer, of course, but the breeze that rustled its leaves felt like approval. Behind the park's fence stood a different school, bigger, richer, with walls so white they looked allergic to dust. From where Ada sat under the tree, she could hear the sound of music lessons drifting through the air, piano keys, tambourines, laughter. She tiptoed to the back fence, peeked through a gap, and smiled. Ada whispers, "So they're still teaching songs in there. Maybe I can still learn." Every day, she would sneak to that spot. She'd crouch in the tall grass, watching through the hole in the fence as students practiced for an upcoming concert. They sang scales, missed notes, argued over rhythm, and Ada copied every sound she heard. When they sang, "Do re mi," she repeated softly. When the teacher corrected them, she corrected herself too. Her little voice carried through the wind, blending with theirs like a ghost melody. She had no teacher now, no classroom, no applause, just her courage, her guitar, and a tree that never complained. At night, when the city lights flickered and the moon wore its tired smile, Ada would practice by herself under that tree. Her mother sometimes joined her, though half the time Mama Ada sang different songs in different keys. Mama Ada loudly sings, "We are marching in the light of God." Ada corrects her saying, "Mama, we're not marching, we're practicing harmony." Mama Ada shouts, "Harmony? Then harmonize with the mosquitoes. They're singing too." Even madness had rhythm sometimes. Still, every night, Ada's voice grew stronger, clearer. The park became her concert hall, the stars her audience. She sang not just to survive now, but to remember Aunt Praise, to remember Sandra, to remember the dream that once lived behind a closed gate. Days passed, then weeks. Some mornings, children from the nearby school passed by and whispered, "That's the mad girl who sings near the fence." Others threw her curious glances. But Ada didn't care. She had found her rhythm again, her reason to wake up. Sometimes she'd climb halfway up the tree and sit there, singing quietly to herself, watching the students inside perform. Ada singing softly, "If you can't see me, it's fine. I'll still shine, I'll still shine." She didn't know it yet, but her voice, the one she sang only to the wind in the tree, was about to be heard by someone who could change everything. Because fate, though slow, has perfect timing. And while Ada sang her heart out to a tree, someone familiar was about to pass by that same path, and stop in awe. It was one of those lazy afternoons when the sun seemed drunk, not too hot, not too shy, just hanging there, glowing softly over the town. School had just closed. Children in neat uniforms spilled onto the dusty road, chattering, chasing one another, balancing lunchboxes like trophies of survival. Among them was Sandra, now taller, older, and walking with the confident bounce of a girl who knew where she was going in life. But fate, that mischievous storyteller, had other plans for her that day. As Sandra walked past the park fence, a familiar sound brushed her ears, soft at first, like a memory trying to whisper itself back into existence. It was a voice, fragile, but pure. It rose and fell like a prayer. Ada singing faintly. "If the world turns away, I'll still sing. If they close every door, I'll still dream." Sandra stops, turns slowly and says, "Wait, I know that voice." Her steps froze. Her heart skipped a beat. Because the last time she'd heard that voice, it had been smaller, weaker, coming from a hungry little girl sitting beside a woman who argued with ghosts. Sandra dropped her lunch bag and walked toward the fence. Through the narrow gap in the rusty wire fence, Sandra saw her, Ada. Her hair was tangled, her dress faded, but her eyes still carried that same light, the kind that could make broken things look beautiful. Ada sat cross-legged under the big mango tree, plucking the strings of a battered guitar, singing softly to no one. Sandra whispers, Ada, it's really you. Ada was startled. She turns around and says, Hey, who's that? Wait. Sandra. Sandra grins and says, The one and only. Look at you, still playing that guitar like it owes you money. Ada says, laughing shyly, It owes me more than money. It owes me a life. And just like that, the years melted away. Two girls from different worlds, one with a driver waiting outside school, the other with dust for shoes, reunited by a song under a tree. Sandra slipped her hand through the fence, holding out a sandwich. Sandra snapped, smiling. I still can't finish lunch. You know, some habits die hard. Ada widely grins. Then keep not finishing. The world needs people like you. They both laughed, the kind of laughter that made the air lighter. Then Sandra sat on the other side of the fence, listening as Ada played. Every strum carried a story of nights under streetlights, of hunger and hope, of madness and music. Sandra listened, her eyes glistening. Sandra asks, Ada, you sing better than most people in my school. Where did you learn all this? Ada comments, Behind that fence. Your music teacher shouts loud enough for the whole town to learn. Sandra laughs and asks, You're unbelievable. You mean all this time you've been sneaking lessons from outside? Ada comments jokingly, Call it distance learning. I just don't pay school fees. I pay attention. Sometimes wisdom wears torn clothes. From that day on, Sandra came to the fence every evening, not just to give food, but to learn, teach, and share. Sandra taught Ada new songs from her school books. Ada taught Sandra how to put emotion into music, to feel it. They practiced duets, harmonies, even silly jingles they made up themselves. Sandra sings softly, Mama says eat your greens. Ada joins in, But my dreams taste better. Their friendship became the kind of melody that made strangers stop and smile. Weeks passed. The concert at Sandra's school drew closer. Ada watched as the preparations grew louder each day, posters on walls, music rehearsals echoing through the town. She couldn't join officially, but she didn't mind. She had found a place, under the tree, behind the fence, beside a friend who saw her for more than her torn dress. Sometimes, Sandra's father's car would pass by to pick her up. Ada always did when she saw it. She didn't want to embarrass her friend. But one evening, fate decided to turn the volume up again. Because while the two girls sang their hearts out, harmonizing through the fence, a man in a sleek black car stopped nearby. He rolled down his window, and when he saw his daughter sitting on the ground beside the fence, singing with a homeless girl, his face changed. From curiosity to disbelief to something deeper. Sandra's father murmurs, What in the world is my daughter doing with her? That moment, right there under the tree, behind the fence, was about to change everything. For Ada, for Sandra, and even for the man who thought money could buy all the right notes. The sun was melting behind the rooftops, painting the sky gold and orange, like even the heavens wanted to see how this story would unfold. Under the old mango tree, Ada and Sandra sat side by side, one barefoot, one in polished shoes, their voices blending in perfect harmony. But when the night feels too long, just remember the song. Even pain can sound like love, musical note. Their laughter echoed across the park. But just a few meters away, behind the half-open gate, someone was watching and fuming. Sandra's father sternly commands, Sandra. His voice cut through the music like a slap. Sandra froze mid-song, her heart racing. Ada's hands fell silent on the guitar. Sandra turning nervously and says, Daddy, you're early. Sandra's father exclaims, Clearly not early enough. What is the meaning of this? Who is this girl? Ada, stammering, standing up quickly, says, Good evening, sir. I'm Ada. Sandra's father asked, frowning, Ada? Ada who? Ada replies, Just Ada, sir. When you're poor, your name doesn't come with a surname, just survival. Sandra's father coldly asks, My daughter, a student at one of the best schools in the city, sitting in the date, singing with a beggar? Sandra firmly objects, She's not a beggar, Daddy. She's my friend. Sandra's father chuckles bitterly. Friend? You have friends who sleep under trees? Sandra, what nonsense is this? Sandra, she's the reason I even love music. She sings better than half the people in my school. Sandra's father asks in a sarcastic tone, Better? This? Gestures at Ada's guitar. This is what you call talent. It's funny how money makes people deaf to melody. Ada nervously clutching a guitar and politely explains. Sir, please, don't be angry. I didn't mean any harm. I love music. Aunt Praise used to. Sandra's father, interrupting sharply. Aunt Praise? Wait, Praise Olin you. Ada asked in shock, eyes widening. Yes, you know her. Sandra's father replies, pausing and stunned. Of course I do. She worked at my company until she moved to the U.S. For a moment, silence fell. The air felt thick with coincidence, or perhaps destiny doing its magic tricks again. Sandra's father explains in a soft tone. She mentioned sponsoring a little girl for music lessons. She said the girl had a gift. He looks at Ada closely and asks, That was you? Ada nods and slowly replies, Yes, sir. She bought me this guitar. She said I could change my life with it. Sandra's father signs and replies, She was right, and I might have judged too quickly. Mama Ada shouts, Ada, Ada, where is my child? The sun is falling on my head again. And there she was, Mama Ada, with mismatched slippers, a scarf tied around her waist like a belt, and eyes that danced between clarity and confusion. She marched toward them, holding a half-eaten mango like a royal scepter. Sandra's father steps back and asks, Who is that? Ada nervously replies, My mother, sir. Mama Ada, squinting at the man, then asks, Hey, who are you? Are you the one stealing my daughter's voice? Sandra's father uncomfortably replies, No, madam, I'm not stealing anything. Mama Ada snaps suspiciously, Good, because if you try, I'll sing till your ears fall off. There are few things more terrifying than a protective madwoman, especially one with confidence. Sandra tried not to giggle, but Ada's embarrassment was glowing brighter than the sunset. Sandra's father pauses and quietly asks, She's your mother? Ada sadly nods. Yes, sir. People call her mad, but she's just tired. Life has been hard. And there, in that moment, something inside the man shifted. He saw not doubt and madness, but a child fighting for light in the dark. Sandra's father softly asks, Ada, where do you stay? Ada replied, Hey, sir, under this tree, sometimes near the market, if it rains. Sandra's father stood quiet and with an emotional pause whispered, My God! For a man who owned half the city, he suddenly realized he'd been poor in the one thing that mattered, kindness. Sandra's father politely says, Get in the car, both of you. Ada asks startled, So? Sandra's father smiles and replies, I can't leave talent under a tree. You will both come home with us tonight. Mama Ada suspiciously asks, Home? You have food there. Sandra's father laughs and says, Yes, plenty. Mama Ada asks with a wide grin, Then what are we waiting for? Lead the way, O rich man of the songs. Even madness knows when to accept a miracle. That night, the billionaire's sleek black car rolled through the city, and for the first time in her life, Ada wasn't walking. She was going somewhere. Sandra's home was like a palace of Ada. Clean floors, bright lights, smells of food that could make angels hungry. She looked around. Whispering, Ada L. says, So this is what heaven smells like. Sandra says in a teasing tone, Wait till you taste it. Sandra's father declares excitedly, Ada, from now on, you'll study music properly. With my daughter, I'll pay for everything. And your mother, she'll get the help she needs. And so began a new chapter, the girl from the streets and the girl from a mansion, bound by music, preparing for a concert that would soon bring the entire town to tears. Because sometimes life doesn't give us what we expect. It gives us what we sing for. And Ada, she had been singing for this moment her whole life. The days that followed felt like chapters from a fairy tale written in real life, a story where kindness tuned the strings of destiny. Ada was no longer the girl behind the fence. Now she sat inside the music room, her name on the class list, her guitar tuned, and her heart pounding like a drum of disbelief. Her mother, Mama Ada, was in therapy, cleaner now, calmer, often smiling at the doctors and saying things like, "You people are trying, but I'm still smarter than your medicine." Some things madness just refuses to surrender, confidence being one of them. Training for the big day. Music teacher excitedly shouts, "All right, everyone. The annual concert is 3 days away. This is your moment to shine, or faint beautifully trying." Sandra looked at Ada from across the room and smiled, the kind of smile that says we've come a long way. Every day after class, the two girls practice harmonies, timing, breathing, stage posture. Sandra had the technique. Ada had the heart. Together, they were magic. Sometimes Sandra's father would peek in quietly, pretending to check his phone while secretly recording them on video. And at night, when Mama Ada visited the music room, she would hum softly, swaying as if conducting an invisible choir. Mama Ada happily shouts, "See? I told the wind my child would sing for the world one day." Maybe the wind had finally delivered the message. On the eve of the concert, Ada couldn't sleep. She sat by her window, staring at the moon, her oldest listener. Her guitar rested on her lap, and she whispered softly, "Aunt prays, wherever you are, thank you, tomorrow, for every child at Cold Street." She strummed once, twice, a melody of gratitude. Some dreams don't need applause, just the courage to keep breathing. The big day arrived. The town's concert hall was packed. Parents, students, teachers, and even a few who'd once mocked Ada were there, dressed like they had front-row tickets to destiny. At the front row sat Sandra's father, wearing his best suit and the proudest smile money couldn't buy. Beside him sat Mama Ada, hair combed, eyes steady, scarf neatly tied. She clutched her handbag like it contained state secrets. Mama Ada whispering to the man beside her, "If my daughter sings off-key, I'll shout key." From here. Man asks in confusion, "Sorry, what?" Mama Ada, "Never mind. You'll hear me." Old habits die with great difficulty. MC energetically shouts. Next up, a special duet performance by Sandra Okoro and Ada. The room fell quiet. Some people leaned forward, others whispered, "Ada? Which Ada?" "The street girl." "No." But when Ada stepped onto that stage, barefoot, elegant, in a simple white dress Sandra's father had bought her, the whispers turned into stunned silence. Sandra joined her, holding a small hand MIC. Ada softly sings, "I once sang to the wind. It carried my tears away." Sandra joins in. "Then I found a friend who taught me to stay." Both, together, voices blending beautifully. When the world turned its face, we still sang our grace. Now the stars know our names. The hall erupted in applause, not just because the girls sang perfectly, but because their voices carried truth. Even the principal, who once allowed Ada to be chased out by the gateman, wiped a tear discreetly, pretending it was just dust from the curtains. When the music ended, Sandra's father stood up first, clapping so hard his watch nearly flew off. Mama Ada jumped to her feet, waving her handbag like a victory flag. Mama Ada yells proudly, "That's my child. I told you all I gave birth to music." And for the first time in years, her laughter was not madness, it was healing. Doctors would later say her recovery accelerated after that day. But those who believe in miracles said, it wasn't medicine, it was music. Presenter loudly announces, and the award for best performance of the year goes to Sandra and Ada. As they walked up to the stage, holding hands, Ada looked out into the crowd, at her mother, at Sandra's father, at the faces that once looked away. She smiled, not out of pride, but peace. Ada softly whispers, "Thank you for hearing me at last." Months later, Ada would be enrolled full-time in the city's music academy, her fees fully paid by Sandra's father, now her biggest fan. Mama Ada became a volunteer at the hospital, always telling her patients, "If life makes you crazy, sing louder than the madness." And as for Sandra and Ada, their friendship became legendary. They started a foundation called Songs of the Street, teaching music to children who had no home, no hope, but plenty of dreams. Because music doesn't just heal ears, it heals hearts. And somewhere in that same park, under the old mango tree where it all began, you can still hear two little voices singing, proof that even the smallest melody can rewrite the loudest story. When the world turns away, I'll still sing,